I'd like to fire the sound man.
Okay, you can't do that.
He's wearing the indoor scarf. I thought only directors wear the indoor scarf. Is he mocking me?
Hello, Joe.
Hi, Joe.
I love this series. The franchise is a brilliant series that shows us the inner workings of the making of a big budget superhero movie, delivered in such a comedic way with such a cast. John, the first question I have for you is, what inspired you to create a series focused on the chaos behind the secrets of making a superhero movie?
Yeah, I mean, it's actually, the initial idea was from Sam and Armando. They had the idea that they're based on Sam's experiences of making Bond movies, franchise movies, about making something set in this world. And then it came to me a couple of years ago. And I guess, it was immediately appealing to me as someone that likes these films, and spending, honestly, a couple of hours listening to Sam talk about them. He's a very good storyteller and he has very many great stories about making those films. And immediately you get a feeling of that there's something very funny in this. And then as you dig deeper into them, specifically franchise films and what they say about cinema and and popular culture, it felt like there was a territory there that no one had really spoken about. I love workplace comedy and sitcom, and it felt like, this is a very particular type of workplace that I think, honestly, is pretty universal. The experiences of being stuck in it, and be it covering for your boss or dealing with egos or whatever that is. So I guess it was just a good way to do my favorite kind of show in a completely different world.
Well, you crushed it, John. You crushed it. Now, Sam deeply resonated with this show because I started my career as a set PA. So this was like a fun thing for me to kind of relive this stuff. Now, you haven't done a superhero movie, but you have directed a franchise like James Bond, like John was saying. How much of the franchise is based or exaggerated from your real life experience working in your own film career?
Oh, thanks.
Well, I think that the environment is very, I hope, quite accurate. I mean, that sense of the number of people on set, you know this from having been a set PA, just the chaos of it, the people watching other people now in the digital age, the proliferation of monitor screens everywhere, big, huge, high definition screens. You're watching people watching other people, everyone's mic'd up, you're listening to people. And there are these sort of layers of people watching other people, so the actors are being watched by the director, who's being watched by the assistant directors and the PAs, who's being watched by the junior producers, being watched by the big producers, and, sometimes even being relayed back into their offices. So it's this sort of hall of mirrors, and so in that regard, I think it's quite, I hope, it cleaves towards reality. In terms of green screen and blue screen, I didn't do so much of that, but my brief experience was short and painful. I found it incredibly difficult and time consuming, and also absurd, because you spend so much time describing what it's going to be, or showing previews about what it's going to be, or showing, art department designs about what it's going to be. And people are dressed in some sort of fantastical array costume, but they're not in the world that matches that. So they're wandering around in these empty spaces dressed, as wizards and Christ knows what. And it is absurd. I mean, and then you add into this, as John says, you add into this the world of the franchise, which is this constantly evolving with no ending, this one long sort of stream of consciousness about superheroes, that goes down tributaries that involve TV shows now and spin-offs and movies about movies, and even in the more recent Marvel efforts, movies that refer to themselves, that actually it's a completely meta experience, and so, I think we all found that there was a rich vein, both of comedy and also, despite all that chaos, romance and a sense of hope that that it is magic being on a film set. It is extraordinary. There is always that feeling that, it's crazy, but what else do you want to do with your life? What else could be better than this? So there's also that sense of naive hope that clings to these things, that this movie might be different. This movie might be the one that breaks the mold. It might be Dark Knight. It might be, Black Panther. And that everyone there cares, very much about what they're doing. That no one's cynical. And I think that's really makes it moving. And I think what John's done so beautifully is he hasn't, it's not a cynical exercise. It's very easy for it to be, this could have been quite a cold, hard show, and it's not. It's human beings struggling with something they care about, and that could refer to almost anything, any walk of life. This one just happens to be making movies. Absolutely.
I want to talk about amazing characters in the show, because I want to start with Hamish Patel's character, first AD Daniel. I feel like when I was a set PA, I saw a lot of myself fantasizing to be the Daniel in this in those sets. So how does Hamish Patel character Daniel balance his fandom for the comic book series Tetco that the film is based on with the strain of the job and his insight in what the film needs to succeed? And that one's for you, John.
Yeah. I guess when we meet him, we feel that he's developed a kind of armor, and that he's able to detach himself and say, there's a moment in the second episode where Dag says, surely if they're doing something that's wrong, we should say something. And his thing is, but we don't have an opinion, Dag. That's not what we do, right? And I guess, and what that episode does is takes him from that point and then breaks him open. And he's like, reveals that he really does care about these things. He cares about them a lot. And that's complicated, because what he might have to confront is maybe he's not saving cinema. There's an argument you could make that franchise movies are saving cinema because they're keeping the multiplexes open. And if you take them away, there's a very good likelihood that some of the big chains will go, that there won't be enough big movies to sustain them, right? You can make that argument. You could also make the argument that they're actually extinguishing that type of movie, and that they're slowly killing them. And I guess he's the embodiment of that conflict. On one hand, maybe they're about to make something that will transcend it. On the other hand, maybe they're not, and they're going to end up killing cinema. And I guess that idea is central to him. And to land that fully, it was really important for us to have an actor that just has that level of that range, that emotional depth, and just Himesh's face, like he's so soulful and you can immediately access his emotions. And so it's a complicated character, but it was a hard part to cast. It was difficult. And I think with him, we really located someone that can portray all of that pain and keep going and be this sort of, he's a hopeless romantic. He just keeps going in the face of insurmountable odds. He's still, and that's the joke, right? At the end of the pilot, the sweeping up elephant shit, like he will always find a way to keep going, even in the face of, it's not a romantic world all the time. And he's a romantic stuck in an unromantic world.
Yeah, you can see the job is taking its toll on him, but he still has that glimmer of hope, which is absolutely needed. Now, Sam, in what ways do you think the franchise will resonate with both movie insiders and the general audience?
I hope it plays to both sides of the spectrum, right? Both ends of the spectrum. I think insiders will find a lot in it that amuses them. It certainly amuses me, and I consider myself to be, relatively speaking, an insider. I think that's partly because our decision was always to drop an audience down right in the middle of it, to not explain everything, almost anything. Let us work our way through this strange new world, this sort of Alice in Wonderland with all these different and strange creatures doing odd jobs, and work it out for ourselves. So there's that. So it doesn't feel like it's playing to beginners, but at the same time, I think a general audience will smell a level of reality and be drawn to it because the characters are sympathetic and in the way that you decide very quickly. I think an audience decides very quickly whether they're in or they're out, depending on whether they are interested in the people at the center of the story. And I think what John's done is create dimensional characters with dimensions, and you feel very, you're intrigued as to their motives, their inner worlds, and also whether they're going to succeed. There's an element of racing against the clock in all this, which I think is gives a kind of is a kind of engine that drives the story forward. Are they going to make the movie? Is it going to be any good? Are they going to complete it? Is it going to be a catastrophe, or might it be, as they all hope, something miraculous that they pull out of the bag at the last minute? You just don't know.
Yeah, listen, I can't wait for audiences to explore with this series. It's phenomenal. It kept me engaged the whole time, and I love the behind the scene interviews as the credits roll. They are much fun. Seems like Richard E. Grant was having the time of his life on this show. It's enough, man. You guys are incredible. Thank you.
Oh, that's
Thank you
really
very
fun.
much.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
Remember, we are top draw professionals. Thank you.
Camera time!